Hi, everyone. Welcome to True Disabled Story. My name is Nico, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm a white man with parted blonde hair, large blue and brown spectacles, and a white t shirt underneath a little button up. I'm seated against a blurred out background. Like about 25% of Americans and a full 17% of Philadelphians, I'm disabled. Whether we look locally, nationally, or even globally, disabled communities are full of dynamic, diverse, and frankly delightful people with their own stories to tell. All we have to do is listen. As many of you know, I was born disabled. I've never known differently, but I am naturally curious when I meet other disabled people, whether in my civic life or personal life, about their diagnostic journeys and what stories they have to tell. Today, I'm honored to be joined by my friend Kim, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. Hi, Kim. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to see you again, Nico.
And nice to see you as well. We'll go ahead and get started. My first question asks, what was your path to diagnosis like? Was this a surprise? Or maybe on the other hand, was this something you and your family were actively pursuing? Paint that picture for us.
Well, before we do that, I'd love to give a quick description of me and say a little bit.
Sure.
I am an Asian American woman. I'm also against the blur background today. I have medium length brown hair. I'm wearing wired glass spectacles, and I have a colorful top with a black jacket on today. And I, like you, was born disabled with cerebral palsy, but I also uniquely had lived with chronic illness. And at age 28, I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis, which is lupus in the kidneys. And from that point on, for quite some time, for more than 10 years, every year I got a new diagnosis. So with lupus and a lot of chronic illness, invisible disabilities, often you get multiple diagnoses and it becomes this crazy journey. Um, it took me a while to get that lupus diagnosis, to be honest. So when you asked me what was my path like, well, with my cerebral palsy, nothing else was different. That's what I knew. The stuff that I mean, I knew I walked funny. I knew I didn't look like anyone. I had to go do operations and do braces and be Forrest Gump for a while, that kind of thing. Um, all that stuff growing up. And I really didn't think of disability as anything different, or anything um, difficult to figure out until the lupus happened in my 20s. So in my 20s, I started not feeling great. I was doing everything I normally do, my job, I was volunteering at church, doing all this stuff, but everything exhausted me like a truck hit me. Like, I always, what's the license plate of that truck? Because all of a sudden I'd be doing my normal thing and I'd just be like wiped out by it. And even going on a date, like going to see a musical or having dinner with a friend and stuff like that, you're like, afterwards I'd want to sleep for 2 days on the weekend. And it's just like something's not right. And so I started seeing my primary care physician. A lot of people with invisible disabilities, it takes them a while to get diagnosed and they see multiple specialists. I did the same thing. I started seeing my primary care physician, who sent me to one specialist after another to try to figure out, what is this? What they were trying to say, is it fibromyalgia? Is it chronic fatigue syndrome? What is this? And luckily, one of the physicians I saw did some blood tests, and some of the numbers were really off with my kidneys, and immediately said, thank God, go see this doctor tomorrow. That kind of freaked me out, to be honest. He was like, here's the doctor's name. He's a top in the class. Go right now. I'm calling his office right now. Call his office and make an appointment. Now, I have never had that experience with any doctor's appointment before, so it scared me. I'm not sure if that was always the best thing. I was like, finally, I get to find out what's wrong with me. But what the hell? Why are you telling me I have to go call now and make the appointment now? Um, I did that. I literally was still at his office and I was calling on my cell phone, making the appointment to the nephrologist, and got in. I had a PPO insurance at the time, so that makes a huge difference. Having PPO insurance with a disability diagnosis is hugely different than having an HMO insurance. For those not in the US, we have different plans. and the PPO is more expensive. You get to choose what doctors you get to see. You don't have to get pre-approvals. HMOs, you have to get pre-approvals. It takes longer to get approvals for stuff. So having the PPO, I think, allowed my doctor to say, call now. And once I saw the nephrologist, he was like, okay, your numbers are off here with the kidneys. We want to do a biopsy. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? That sounds serious. Huh? And, I had been sick. I had not been feeling good. All my energies were off. I was like, literally, like, I had a hard time breathing at work one day when I was walking down the hallway, and that's not my norm. It's not easy for me to walk, but I could walk it, right? I had all these weird symptoms. I was exhausted when I came home. But I was like, what does this have to do with my kidneys? What do you think I have? He's like, I'm not going to tell you anything yet because we have to do the biopsy and I don't want to freak you out. I'm like you haven't freaked me out already. you know? And I was just like, okay. And so we did the biopsy. He scheduled it. Wasn't very hard to do. And he came back and he told me, okay, I think you might have lupus. And I said, what do you mean you think? Why can't you just tell me I have it? Finally, I have a diagnosis. What the hell? Why can't you say I definitely have lupus? So then I did some research and he explained it to me. He said, with lupus and a lot of invisible disabilities, you have to have so many check marks off the box before you're officially diagnosed with something, whether it's chronic fatigue or some other condition, MS, all the different ones that are out there. So I only had checked a couple boxes from the biopsy results and the blood tests. And some of my symptoms checked off some of the boxes, but I hadn't checked off enough boxes yet. So he said, we're going to treat you. Luckily, I had a really good doctor. And he says, we're going to treat you as if you already have the lupus diagnosis because I suspect you have it. And it's just going to take a while for it to show up in the test results and in your symptoms. So that was a plus for me. And we started from there. That's kind of how my chronic illness journey started with the lupus. It was a totally different experience than being born with a disability with the cerebral palsy because I didn't know what to expect. And even though it was a relief to get a diagnosis, it was always scary because, you go down the Google rabbit hole and you start researching and pretend you're a doctor. And it freaks you out. All the possibilities of what is lupus? It's an autoimmune condition. What the hell is an autoimmune condition? Your body attacks itself. Why is my body attacking itself? What do you mean it can attack any organ? What do you mean it can, what does that mean? Do I need a liver? Will I need a kidney transplant? Like all these things. Initially, I went into overdrive and overthinking and thinking of all the possible things that could go wrong. And it was scary. And it was like overwhelming, but also strangely like I have something. Now I know what to call it. Now I don't feel like I'm crazy. It's not all in my head. And I think that's a very common experience for people with invisible disabilities before they're diagnosed. And it was like, okay, now what? So I'm the type of person, I do the research, I talk very direct with my doctors and like, tell me, give me the science, give me the data, give me the stuff. And then we tell me the pros and cons and let's partner together for the decision. And if the doctor doesn't do that, because a lot of times once you see doctors, they don't always listen to you, take you seriously, all that kind. They think you're stupid, you don't have a medical degree or something. But I was like, luckily this doctor took me seriously and explained things and didn't dumb it down. And we talked and we partnered and decided on next steps. But it's not always that experience because I've had plenty of doctors that didn't take me seriously when I got a diagnosis. Because after that, with lupus, you tend to get multiple diagnoses after that. So for years, every year I got some weird condition and it was some weird new symptom. And I was like, what the hell is happening here? And then I jokingly blogged about it on WordPress back then because we didn't have a lot of other platforms. And I jokingly blogged every year. This year's condition is brought to you by the letter P, like Sesame Street. And that's how I coped with it. Like every time I got something else, I just kind of was like, okay, now what? Okay, now what do we do? And then I got another specialist, and then I got another specialist. And it was exhausting because it was a full-time job to do your job, cope with the symptoms of the medications you are on, and manage all the medical appointments.
That sounds like a lot, Kim. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that you tried to put your own spin on things by writing a humorous WordPress site. I'm so thankful that that one doctor made that leap and decided to treat you as if you had lupus, even though you were a few checkboxes short. So often in doing this series, I hear tales of doctors not believing patients or not coming through at critical times. And I'm glad that at that one particular instance, you did not have that experience. You had quite the opposite. Thank goodness. So, what impact have these diagnoses had on your life? You got diagnosed with CP shortly after birth. Lupus appears when you're in your 20s. What impact has it had on your life since then?
Well, it's really strange. Positive and negatives exist. I'm not a toxically positive person, so I'm not going to say it was all easy. Um, I had depression because with lupus, you're like, what did I do wrong? Could I have stopped it? What the hell? What's wrong with me? Like, why did it happen to me? Don't I have enough already? I argued with God like crazy. Like, hello, don't I have enough with the CP? Why do I have to have this now? And then to get one new condition every year, chronic fatigue, all this other stuff. I had heart murmur, so there was lupus potentially in my heart as well. Um, all this eczema, all these different things for a while. And it was just like, it was almost like my body got permission to go crazy, and it did. Right. Once I got the name, it was like, let's just show you all the other stuff that you have hidden underneath, and I was like, calm down. Can we all just calm down? I was trying to tell my body to calm down. I was mad at my body. I was like, I felt like my body was betraying me with the lupus for a while. I wasn't happy about it. I was like overwhelmed, just with the managing of, like I said, a job, um, the doctor's appointments, the medical bills, just the craziness. I did have to go see other specialists, and they didn't always take me seriously, or they didn't treat me like I was an intelligent human being, right? And so then I switched doctors because I'm like, nope, you don't fit with me. Like, no, you're not going to treat me like I don't know anything. You're not going to treat me where you tell me to do this and I don't get to say what are my other options. Right. So whenever I got doctors like that, I would be like, if you can't tell me my other options and give me some other options, or you can't tell me why this is the only option, or if we started taking the medication, I got these side effects and you said, oh, that's not on the list, right? And I'm like, but I get the weird ones. That's one thing I learned about my body with all these medications. I get the weird ones. I get the rare ones. So my doctors have to understand sometimes I'm the weird one with this stuff, and they have to understand if I say I have this side effect, I'm not bullshitting. What are we going to do about it? And so it took a while. It really impacted my relationships on how I saw doctors, how I saw medical bills, how I saw the cost of everything. Once you get diagnosed, it's exhausting. It's nice because you finally get to get treatments and stuff, but once you get the treatments and the medications, they're not cheap. And you have to do special copay plans, and you have to do special paperwork. And if you can't, you don't get the medication. And then what? And then you're like, so my body's just going to get worse with this one, or what? What are we going to do? So it's very stressful because you go from not having any doctor's appointments and being relatively normal and not having tons of medical bills to all of a sudden managing your normal life bills with medical bills. And it's a lot. Some of my medications were thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month just for one medication. And I had to do all this paperwork to get some help, to get some coverage. And then anything else to figure out how else can I get it? What other things? It was a lot initially. And like I said, I was mad at God. I felt like my body was betraying me. Like, why aren't you cooperating? What did I do wrong? And it took a while for me to make peace and realize I can choose to react differently to this. And I can see that my body doesn't hate me, but my body's talking to me.
Yeah,
And once I
absolutely.
started doing that, it was a little bit easier to manage.
How long did it take you to have this change in your mind framework, I guess I'll say, between being angry being surprised, being scared, and then coming to some kind of acceptance and um, regaining your autonomy.
Well, all those phases, right? Does it sound familiar? It's grief. It's the grieving process,
Okay, yeah.
right? Because
Uh-huh.
I felt like I was losing my body, control of my life. I was grieving my past or how I used to be able to work, how I used to be able to manage my schedule and not be tired, I was grieving my previous life before all this diagnosis happened.
That
And
makes
the
a lot of sense.
anger, yeah, the anger, the stuff, like all that. I was going through the grieving process. Once I recognized that, I was like, okay, well, how do I get to acceptance? How do I find some peace in this? And it took a good 10 years. I'm not at least 10 years to go through this process for me. Because like I said, every year I got something new. So I was like, okay, now what? I mean, I joked about it, but I was like, come on, give me a break, right? What the hell's
Oh,
happening? Why? And then it took a while for me to realize my body is not angry at me. My body is talking to me, and it's up to me to listen. And it's up to me to decide what can I do now to help my body to heal, to feel better, to manage this better. What can I do to my life and my schedule to not feel so overwhelmed or not I'm an overachiever, perfectionist, crazy. I'll work till midnight. I was doing like grad school, church work because I was working as a pastor at the time and doing a communications job to pay the bills, right? So I was doing three things all at once and doing all this stuff. I was crazy all day long doing stuff. So it was like I wasn't listening to my body that says slow down. Slow down. You're doing a full-time graduate program, you're doing a part-time pastor gig, you're doing a part-time communications gig. It's two full-time job, a full-time job and grad school. And I know we all do that, right? Because we want to make it, but our bodies can't always handle it. And we don't listen. So
oh,
when
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and so when I finally stopped and I was like, okay, because lupus, they said their body's attacking itself. So one of my doctors says, one, tell your body to love yourself, right? And stop hating it. And I was like laughing with my doctor. I'm like, you know what? That's what it is. I'm going to say, hey, thank you. Instead of seeing every flare up as you're going against me, you're betraying me. Thank you for telling me I need a break. Thank you for telling me I got to slow down or I got to change my schedule or I got to do something different. Um, and start working with the medications and not seeing every medication is, oh my God, what side effects? Oh my God. Like every time I got added a new medication, I'd like put it out there and I'd see the stack of pills, right? And it was just like depressing. And it was like, and I'd see every pill, like there was a long time after when I got into remission that I didn't want to even take vitamins because it was just like medication, right? So even now, I don't like pills. I like taking gummy bears for vitamins. Okay, give me gummy bears of anything because it doesn't feel like medication, even now. But now I'm in a flare up now, by the way. So it just recently, it's a small flare up, but now I experience it differently. And I say, okay, here's the three medications we're on. Every time I take it, I said, thank you for the medication. I'm grateful for my healthcare. And I'm please work with my body to get to shut it, to calm the F down. Every time I take a pill, I'm like, calm the F down. We're okay. I'm safe. I'm good. And thank you for talking to me, but let's all calm the F down. So in a flare up, that's what I see my body saying. We all need to calm the F down. Don't freak out. We're all good. I'm safe. And so now I take my pills and I just thank it and I tell my body it's okay. We're going to work with this. Thank God for the medication, even though it's expensive as hell. I got some assistance. We're good. We'll figure it out. Like I try to do that now. And I try to see it as it's not a bad thing. It's just my body talking to me. And we all live with chronic crap at some stages in our life. We all, people say it's ages, when you're 80 something, people expect you to be disabled, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like, we're all going to get there and have to deal with something or the other. So that's why I say disability isn't a bad thing. That's also something I've learned over the years in the 10 years of acceptance. Disability isn't a bad word. Lupus is not a bad thing. Lupus is my body talking to me and teaching me how to love myself anyway. And the word for this year for me is wholeness. So for me, because I always pick a word for the year, and this year is wholeness. So we are not broken, needing fixing, whether we're disabled or not. We are the greatest project we'll ever work on. And we're all just learning to live in our wholeness. In the Japanese tradition, there's this whole tradition, I can't pronounce it, but it starts with a K. And whenever there's cracks in ceramics, they don't throw it away. They use gold and they fill the cracks with gold. And I used to say, when I was going through this process, I'm just learning to fill my cracks with gold. I'm not broken, needing fixing. I'm just learning to fill my cracks with gold. I'm living in my wholeness.
Wonderful allegory. Thank you for telling me about it. I'll definitely have to look it up. I can really sympathize with what you were saying earlier about wanting to be that perfectionist and be an overachiever. I have that in my second nature as well. So when you mentioned that it took a long time for you to learn about how it's okay to slow down and it's not something inherently bad, that really spoke to me. I can really identify. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kim. I really admire this journey that you're on.
Oh, thank you. I wonder, like, how many of us who are overachievers and perfectionists and all this stuff, how many of us don't hear our bodies speaking to us until it's more chronic,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Or more evident.
I sometimes wonder if one disabled person's pursuit of perfection, right, is
Right.
an attempt to control something as a way to compensate for what they can't control, whatever their disability or symptoms might be. But hey, who knows?
Yeah, we all react to it differently, right? We all respond to it differently. And that's why our journeys are so unique. And we can't just blanket statement that, oh, you should be this way, right?
Mhm.
Like I hated when people used to say, oh, you're so inspirational. Now I'm not so mad about it. Like I used to be like, why do I have to be inspirational to you? Right. Well, other disabled people I see on social media, they get over it and da 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 and all this stuff. And it used to bug me. And of course, we learned about ableism and in that process and how ableism plays into that. But now I just see it as well. If I can be inspiring to someone, it doesn't always have to relate to my disability. I'm still whole, so I don't react to it as much as I used to. But it's just, I don't know. I just being disabled is just part of me. That's it. It's not all of me, but it's definitely shaped me, and I'm grateful for that because, like you, I was born with it, so, like, it wasn't like I've never been non-disabled. I mean, it's just weird, like, to think that somebody sees it as a bad thing, right? And initially, with any diagnosis, of course, it's scary, and it can initially feel like a bad thing, and I'm not gonna discount, like, cancer or other things that happen to us. Yes, bad things happen to good people. Our health isn't always perfect, but I don't know. I believe we can always choose how we respond to everything. And so for me, it's a lot easier not to be toxically positive, but I'm trying my best to respond it to a way that gives my body peace and doesn't feel like I have to fight it all the time.
Definitely. That's peace you deserve. Thank you so much for talking to me.
You're welcome.
If you could look back, or if you had to do this all over again, Kim, what advice would you give yourself or other people with your diagnoses?
Oh, I had so many, it's ridiculous.
Mhm.
With lupus or with cerebral palsy or any disability, give yourself permission to be angry, to be scared, to have all the emotions, and still celebrate and be happy and accept it and go through the positive and negative, the journey of it all. Um, Give yourself permission to grieve it. Give yourself permission to be angry at God. Give yourself permission to be angry at the world. Give yourself, but then don't stay stuck there. Now what? Ask yourself, now what? What do you want to do next? How your disability isn't a bad word, but it's not all of you. It's just part of who you are. It shaped you. It'll continue to shape you. It'll create all these wonderful connections and conversations with new people that you may have never met before in this disabled community, but it's not all of you. So you get to define who you are and all of who you are and the wholeness of who you are. So now what?
That's really worthy advice. Thank you. Indeed, disabled life goes on. Kim, as we close our time together, I want to thank you again for providing such a comprehensive overview of your disability journey. I've loved hearing about the changes in your mindset, and how you don't shy away from the fact that disabled life can be very difficult, and it takes a lot of energy and time to mourn the life that you thought you would lead, but now that you don't necessarily get to. I want to give us a chance with my last question to have space to promote ourselves, brag about yourselves. If you have any recent win or some cool success upcoming, you could brag about that. I just find that disabled people like you and me, Kim, so rarely get a chance to feel good about ourselves. And I want to make like an intentional space to have that happen here. So go ahead, if you're interested in like building community, where can people find you online? But please be your own cheerleader.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that so
Yeah.
much. And it's true. We don't brag about ourselves because we don't know, should we, right? Are we
Yeah.
allowed to? Does it seem too like, I don't know. We don't want to be too, I don't know. There's so much for that. I love celebrating. People can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me. I am a career leadership and executive coach, and I help people through lots of different transitions with their work life and their work-life balance and their personal life, how to make that all work, right? Despite all our challenges and all the things that we have to go through, one of my areas of expertise are career transitions, um, and also emotional intelligence, how to deal with these emotions that we come up with, whatever's happening in our personal life and our work life, as well as our professional brand and our personal brand and how we tell our stories so that we can create that success that we want, so that we can create the life that we want and focus on what is working for us, right? What is working for us, and then taking what's not working for us and using that to inform us and shape us to say, this is where we want to go next. So figuring out what's the next chapter, how to get there, and how to succeed at it and be the best that you can be in that. And just, I guess, finding peace and acceptance with your decisions, because I think that's a hard thing to do in your career, in your personal life, and managing everything, whether or not you have a disability. So LinkedIn is the best space. My website is www.resilientleadersolutions.com. You can check me out there. But really, LinkedIn is the best space. Send me a message, a DM, or follow me and comment on one of my posts and ask to connect, and I'd be happy to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kim. I want to thank you again for your time, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Wherever you go or whatever you do, heck, I'm rooting for you.
Thank you so much. And Nico, you are always doing amazing things, and I can't wait to see what you're doing next. I know you recently went to a conference and you
Yeah.
just are all out there, and I just so admire just how you're just open and available and create this space for all of us in this community.
Thank you so much. Take care, Kim.
Bye-bye.